Imagine living in a city where every citizen has the right to vote, where freedom of speech is celebrated, and where power belongs not to a king, but to the people. Sounds like the perfect society, doesn't it? Yet over 2,400 years ago, one man looked at this very system and saw something deeply dangerous. His name was Socrates, the philosopher who changed Western thought forever. But here's the irony. The city that proudly called itself the birthplace of democracy eventually sentenced him to death. So why did Socrates become one of democracy's sharpest critics? Was he an enemy of freedom? Did he secretly want dictatorship? Or was he warning humanity about a flaw that still threatens democracies today? To answer that question, we must travel back to ancient Athens, where democracy was young, fragile, and far different from the representative democracies we know today. In the 5th century BCE, Athens allowed many male citizens to participate directly in political decisions. Laws were debated in public assemblies, officials were often selected by lot, and ordinary citizens could decide questions of war, justice, and public policy. To many historians, this was a revolutionary experiment. But Socrates saw something most people ignored. He believed that while every person had the right to speak, not every opinion possessed equal wisdom. Think about it for a moment. If you were seriously ill, would you choose your doctor through a popularity contest? Or would you seek the most skilled physician? If your life depended on sailing across a violent sea, would you trust the most qualified captain? Or the passenger who received the loudest applause? Socrates believed politics should follow the same principle. Governing a nation was a specialized craft requiring knowledge, reason, and moral character, not merely confidence or popularity. This simple yet radical idea formed the foundation of his criticism. He feared that democracy encouraged people to mistake confidence for competence and popularity for wisdom. According to the accounts preserved by his student Plato, Socrates often challenged influential Athenians by asking deceptively simple questions. What is justice? What is courage? What makes a good ruler? Again and again, respected politicians, poets, and public figures struggled to define the very values they claimed to defend. Socrates wasn't trying to embarrass them for entertainment. He wanted to expose a dangerous illusion. People often believe they know far more than they actually do. And when ignorance gains political power, entire societies can suffer. This is where Socrates' famous statement becomes so important. The only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing. This wasn't a celebration of ignorance. It was an invitation to intellectual humility. Before leading others, first question yourself. Before making decisions for a nation, first examine whether your beliefs are based on truth or emotion. But Athens often rewarded the opposite. Charismatic speakers known as sophists became masters of persuasion. They could argue almost any position convincingly, regardless of whether it was true. Winning debates mattered more than discovering truth. Emotion defeated evidence. Rhetoric defeated reason. Sound familiar? Socrates believed that when citizens become captivated by persuasive speeches rather than careful thinking, democracy slowly transforms into a contest of manipulation. The loudest voice begins to outweigh the wisest mind. Yet history made his fears even more personal. During the Peloponnesian War, Athens suffered devastating defeats, political instability, economic hardship, and social unrest. Under pressure, democratic assemblies sometimes made impulsive decisions driven by fear, anger, or revenge rather than careful judgment. One of the most famous examples came after the naval victory at Arginusae, when several successful generals were condemned in a highly emotional trial because they failed to recover the bodies of fallen soldiers during a storm. Many historians view this episode as evidence of how public passion could overwhelm due process. For Socrates, incidents like these illustrated a deeper problem. A crowd, no matter how large, could still make catastrophic mistakes. Numbers alone could not guarantee wisdom. Eventually, Socrates himself became a victim of the system he questioned. In 399 BCE, He stood trial on charges of corrupting the youth and impiety, failing to honor the city's gods. While historians continue to debate the political motivations behind the trial, many believe lingering resentment after Athens' turbulent political history and Socrates' association with some controversial former students contributed to the verdict. A jury of hundreds of citizens found him guilty and sentenced him to drink poison hemlock. The philosopher who dedicated his life to asking questions was condemned by the very democracy that claimed to value free discussion. Yet even at the edge of death, Socrates refused to abandon his principles. He rejected opportunities to escape from prison because he believed that respect for the law, even when the law treated him unjustly, was essential to the moral life. This extraordinary decision has fascinated philosophers for centuries. Was he accepting injustice or demonstrating that true integrity means remaining faithful to one's principles even when the world turns against you? Whatever the answer, his death transformed him from a controversial teacher into one of history's greatest symbols of intellectual courage. But here's where many people misunderstand Socrates. He did not simply hate democracy in the modern sense. His criticism was directed at an uneducated democracy guided by emotion instead of reason. He believed that freedom without wisdom could become self-destructive. He feared that when citizens stop seeking truth and start chasing comforting illusions, democracy weakens from within. His student Plato expanded this concern in The Republic, arguing that excessive freedom could eventually produce chaos, allowing ambitious leaders to exploit public fears and establish tyranny. Whether or not we agree with Plato's conclusions, the underlying question remains astonishingly relevant today. Can a society remain free if its citizens stop thinking critically? Can elections alone guarantee justice if voters are overwhelmed by misinformation, tribal loyalty, or emotional manipulation? These questions echo across centuries because they challenge every generation, including ours. Socrates reminds us that democracy is not merely a system of counting votes. It is a culture of questioning assumptions, pursuing truth, and accepting that we may be wrong. Without those habits, democracy risks becoming vulnerable to demagogues, propaganda, and impulsive decision-making. His legacy is therefore not an attack on freedom, but a call to make freedom worthy of itself. The greatest danger, Socrates believed, was never that ordinary people possessed power. It was that power could be exercised without wisdom, without self-examination, and without a genuine commitment to truth. And perhaps that is why his voice, silenced by poison more than to millennia ago, still speaks so powerfully to the modern world. It asks every citizen, every leader, and every society one uncomfortable question. Are we choosing what is popular, or what is true,